legendary broadcaster, a good friend of the chairman of Reform UK. Dr. David Bull, how are we?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. As you can see, I'm in a pub garden. I'm in Surrey. I'm at the Black Prince. By the way, Amy, who's working behind the bar, massive fan of yours. So I said I would say hello, and hopefully you'll say hello back.
Hello, Amy. And can I just credit this man? You think you've got a difficult job, anybody, right? This man's back. I mean, you have been at it 24 hours a day for the last few months and for the next 3 years and 9 months. And you've stopped off so you can do this. And we're really, really grateful.
It's worse than that, actually, because I'm on my chairman's tour. And actually, I completely changed the schedule so that I could get here to Surrey earlier to be in the pub garden. I'm sitting with a table with a suitcase on it, with a laptop on it, so that I could contribute to your amazing drive time show.
Do you know what's amazing about that is you'll probably be the chairman of the next government and you're sat there in a pub garden. We love you. Can I just warn you, the police could come there and arrest you. You've got a Union Jack flag on your lapel. Are you worried about that?
No, not at all. That's the whole point, right? So last week we were polling, I think when we spoke, we were polling pretty much across the country at 33%. Now, according to that MRP, which you just read out, which is an extraordinary poll, and MRP is a multi-regression poll, so it's a really big poll, we're polling at 36%. You read out those numbers right. So if there's a general election today, we would win 445 seats. As you say, Labour down to 73 seats. Tories pretty much wiped out, down to 7 seats. This would be extraordinary. It would actually be the biggest overturn, the biggest parliamentary majority in modern political history. So we think the Tories at this rate will be wiped out. Labour would face the worst results since 1931. These are historic times. And I'm not surprised because pretty much everything you say is right. It doesn't matter where I go in the country. I was in Newcastle last week. There in Newcastle, we're not polling at 36%. In Newcastle, we're polling at 38%. So it doesn't really matter where I go in the country. People are sick of this. They're sick and tired of the two-party system. They want change. They want to see a government that actually does something, whether it's about immigration, the cost of living. I mean, that Ed Miliband thing and paving over prime agricultural land with solar panels is utterly ridiculous, and we will fight it.
Richard Tice describes net as stupid, net stupid zero. I've never understood, and I suppose it will put me on a level with you guys in Reform. I make no apology for that on this particular issue, is that we seem to have situations in this country where pensioners aren't having their houses warmed up. People can't get operations. People are being left, veterans on the streets, all the stuff that genuinely should matter. Waspy women, the farming community being destroyed. And yet this idiot Miliband thinks it's a good idea to look however many hundreds of years in the distance and bankrupt still further a country that has no money. And I always want to say to Ed Miliband, David, I always want to say, mate, what about what's happening right now? We have a Prime Minister who ran off to the rest of the world and has been humiliated. It should be here and now. And when you say, I say it every day, indigenous population, the left go, oh, you're racist, that's wrong. It's not wrong. What about the people who have paid in for the very basic things they should get in return, who are missing out because of mad, crazy stuff like Ed Miliband's doing?
Well, I agree, absolutely. And I think, and I said this last week to you, for me, this is all about fairness, and people in this country just feel everything is not fair. And that pretty much goes across the board. The government has no ideology, no strategy. It really doesn't know what it stands for. And so they're launching war on pretty much every sector, you know, whether it's the farmers, whether it's actually upsetting everyone who sends their kids to private school, who actually work hard to do that. You're seeing the employer national insurance contributions. You know, the government stupidly thought they would actually raise more tax revenue. What has happened? Small businesses can't actually afford to employ anyone. So they're not employing people because of those tax rates being so high. So again, this is because the government doesn't actually know what it's doing. And Rachel Reeves is about to break her rules once again. Remember, she said she wasn't going to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT. She has said pretty candidly, I think this morning, that she will do that because, of course, her economics make no sense at all. What I'd like to see is someone as Chancellor who actually knows what they're doing.
I find it astonishing that anybody, and listen, I know it was only 34% or something of the population, maybe less than that voted for Labour, and we believe, I think all of us, that he didn't win the election, Starmer. The Tories had stopped being listened to, and, you know, it's a shame Reform was not in its infancy, but everything that comes out of their mouths, we're not going to raise council tax. You have raised council tax. We're not going to destroy businesses, small businesses. We're going to talk about growth. They talked about growth for 2 years and then put their NI on small businesses, which has absolutely destroyed so many. We're going to lower your energy bills. No, your energy bills have gone through the roof because of this madness about net zero. Today, The new Home Secretary. I mean, talk about words meaning nothing. Britain, she's warned today, David, that Britain's failure to control its borders is eroding trust in politicians and the credibility of the state. Are these people stupid? Do they not think that your average Briton knows that? If you look at that poll today, one of the biggest things in people's minds, whatever the left tell you, is immigration and the impact on the state.
And I actually think this election is pretty much all about immigration, and that goes across the board, whether actually it's about whether you can find a GP, whether you can get on the housing ladder, all the stuff that we talk about the whole time. Wait, there's one more thing that's going to go on. You mark my words. The government is going to try and pin all of this on Brexit. And I think that is going to backfire spectacularly, because they seem to have forgotten that actually the majority of people in this country voted for Brexit. We haven't had a full and proper, full-fat Brexit, and that is what people want to see in this country. And so the government, once again, clutching at straws, deciding to go after the Brexiteers, it's going to end in tears for the Labour Party.
One of the things that I get asked about a lot, and I'm not putting you on the spot, I want you to say this. There was a bit of criticism of Nigel last week. Is Reform simply going to be a party that only talks about immigration? What about the economy? And of course, when you're doing well, that's what happens. And they're going to come. I said it in the introduction. They're going to come for you. They're going to say you're not experienced. They're going to come for you and say you haven't got people who have run governments. I've got an answer for that, but I'll let you do it, because look at the shower we've had. I actually think a bunch of businessmen and women who've never been in politics couldn't do any worse at all. But I presume at this moment, in terms of the party evolving, you are getting policy ideas together, but you're not going to put them out 100%. there until they're costed and sorted through, right?
Well, that's absolutely right. Of course, what we're giving the public is a sense of direction, and at least our policies are cogent and they hang together, and there is a reason and a methodology behind it. So what we're now doing behind the scenes is we've got policy working groups which are actually putting the sort of finishing details to all of those policies, working them through. So let's take health. I mentioned this last week. Obviously, as my background as a medic, I've got amazing doctors and nurses and pharmacists and people who've run hospitals coming together saying the NHS is broken, we need to fix it, this is how we do it, and then that will then feed into the head of policy. But also that's why Danny Kruger coming across is really important, because he is preparing us for government. So we're not going to announce all of these policy ideas immediately, because we saw from Kemi Badenoch's speech, everything that she announced that I thought was quite good, I realised that actually it was our policy.
Really interesting comment here from David. He says, please ask the good doctor how many candidates he has at this moment in place, because I, like many others, David Hubbard, believe there could well be a snap election, because he believes that the Labour Party quite possibly might throw Starmer under the bus, like I do.
I would agree. I would agree totally. Just to give you an idea, and I can't go into the exact details, but we need to find 5,000 candidates, and that means pretty much I have to find 9,000 to fully vet them to ensure that we get those 5,000 candidates. Now, in terms of the parliamentary candidates, we haven't actually opened that list, but we are about to do so. And I spoke to Nigel about this. We also believe that election is coming much sooner than we think. And of course, I think we saw today in the House of Commons, Starmer under enormous pressure. I have to say, I thought Kemi Badenoch was on her best form that I have ever seen her on this afternoon. I think Starmer's under serious pressure.
Can I play a clip of Starmer, because I've got this is about the Chinese crisis for people just tuning in. Basically, to cut a long story short, there are two people found to have been spying for China within the House of Commons, Christopher Cash and Christopher, I don't know, Christopher Berry. This was all ready to go to the Director of Public Prosecutions. The Tories lost the election. The CPS, the very body that our Prime Minister ran as a left-wing human rights lawyer, are accusing the government of not coming through with the relevant information, and they're saying, you are hampering this. To Starmer, that must be like the worst thing said. Today, he literally stood up and said, I'm going to publish it. I'm going to play the clip. Just to have a watch at what Starmer was forced to say today.
On Monday, the Security Minister repeatedly told the House that ministers did not take decisions, that it was the Deputy National Security Advisor who had full freedom. Is the government seriously saying that only one man, the Deputy National Security Advisor, had anything to do with this failure? Is he seriously saying that the Deputy did not discuss with the National Security Advisor, did not discuss with the Home Secretary or with anyone in Downing Street? Is the Prime Minister seriously saying that?
Yes.
Brilliant. I only got one word from him, but there's the basis, David, right? You know what it's like when clips happen. I think this is going to come back to haunt him, because if he makes the pledge, which he did later, that he will publish all that information, right, there is no doubt that even the Labour Party know that that information is not going to provide what he has said it provides. I would suggest this, and I could be wrong. Maybe my brain is sometimes too conspiratorial. I think there are figures in the Labour Party who have worked out he's already an absolute liability. And if he is surrounded by all these shady creatures like Jonathan Poole, or whatever he now calls himself, and other people, maybe they've given this stuff information, because how can he come back from that? He's lied.
I think that's right. We need to see what he actually releases, but I think Starmer's in big trouble over this, and I think you can see that from Kemi Badenoch continuing to press him on that point. The fact is, the question now for Labour is, what does it do about it? And it's much harder for Labour to get rid of their leader than it is for the Tories, who are very good at regicide, as you know. So the question is, what happens there? Also, just in terms of the other polling, what we need to look at is what happens to Corbyn et al., for example, and also the rise of the Green Party with Zach Polanski, because that is going to fracture that Labour vote. So the question is, what does that do to the left-wing vote? What does it do to the vote that is currently coming to us? But also, just in terms of who is voting for us, 50% of those people who voted Labour at the last election are now voting for us.
Yeah.
So
people
you're
always
seeing
make it out about the Tories, but there is a seismic shift. Do you worry, as the chairman of Reform? Many people say this to me. What about, you know, Mad Polanski, the breast grower, as I've decided to call him? Polanski gets with Corbyn, gets with... Do you imagine that the establishment, both political parties and the establishment, will be so freaked out and scared of Reform's meteoric rise that they will do whatever it takes to stop Nigel Farage getting into number 10? Does that concern you?
Yes, of course it does. I mean, I think I keep saying you need to play the ball and not the man. And we're seeing that obviously we're being targeted the whole time. One of the things that I do as I go around the country is to say to people who've never had political experience, look, you need to stand, you need to think about whether you would actually, you know, stand for this country. And of course, part of me is also reticent because I know actually what is going to get thrown at them. We've seen councillors, very young councillors as well, who are doing a great job, having all sorts of accusations thrown at them. And I was on the phone to one of them this morning, who I think is having a really torrid time, actually. And that shouldn't be the case when you're in public office, I think.
No, I agree. And look what happened. I mean, the case the other day with Nigel, I mean, I love your opinion on this, by the way, that scrote that got 5 years. I don't understand how in this country, and I'd love Reform to grab this bull by the horns, you get given 5 years, you serve 2.5, soon to be less after the sentencing bill next week. You should serve the... I was talking to Sarah yesterday, Sarah Potion, you should serve the time you're given. But that bloke should be deported in a heartbeat, shouldn't he?
Of course he should.
Under a Reform government, he's gone, hasn't he?
Absolutely right. And of course, you see, the thing is actually all of these fingers point back at Keir Starmer. If you remember, he said Nigel Farage wasn't patriotic. He said that Reform UK, anyone who supports Reform UK, anyone who is a member of Reform UK is racist. And I would point that back at the Prime Minister, saying, you are stirring up this racial hatred and incitement. And so what you are doing is despicable, it's deplorable, it's unacceptable. And actually, I think it's unbecoming of a Prime Minister.
It's quite interesting. We like to have I mean, we've talked about, you know, a Home Secretary that says we've lost our borders. We've talked about this amazing poll that says Reform are going to sweep to power. We've talked about how we're giving migrants... I mean, you've had that... Have we done that story? My brain's... You know, the furious migrants facing deportation are given luxuries, including art classes.
I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous.
260 million quid front of the Sun this morning. How do you think people swallow that?
But that's the whole point, isn't it? That actually we're treating illegal migrants better than people who are indigenous, to use your word, who live in this country, grew up in this country, where actually they can't get a house, where our army veterans aren't looked after properly. The whole point, if you come here illegally, we will detain you and we will deport you. And if you come here illegally, you will not be able to claim asylum in this country. And once you are deported, if you come back, that is a criminal offence, and therefore you will serve time in His Majesty's pleasure. But to do that, we have to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, and we have to tear up the Human Rights Act and replace it with the British Bill of Rights. This is actually going back to fairness and putting British people first.
I'd like to finish in a slightly light-hearted way, because I was at the in-laws last night. And I came down this morning to find the mother-in-law doing some ironing and watching Mike Graham, and she turned to me, she said, I didn't realise that Starmer's got an illness. Have we got the clip? According to Mike Graham, and this has been checked, by the way, Keir Starmer is suffering from mythomania. Have a little watch, David.
From Behind the Glass has come up with an even better definition, I think, where apparently it's called mythomania. Compulsive lying, a persistent and uncontrollable urge to lie, going beyond occasional fibbing or social lies. Lying often involves creating intricate and dramatic, sometimes unbelievable tales about one's past achievements or experiences. Like, for example, saying, we worked very well behind the scenes to get the peace deal done. So Keir Starmer suffers from mythomania. We've finally solved the problem.
David Bull, chairman of Reform. What do you think? Mythomania. Well, it's all a myth. I mean, it's true, man. It's true.
Well, it is. I think Keir Starmer is writing his own history, isn't he? The fact is that he sort of throws away facts and decides that these are the new facts. And then I think he's actually, it's quite interesting, this. The more you repeat those facts that aren't true, the more you believe them. And I think he actually believes what he is now saying.
You said something in the middle that I completely concur with, which you know, you remember the 100 days and Sue Gray, and she'd gone before the 100 days were up. I can't believe a party that knew it was coming to power for 2 years, and I'll bring it back to Reform to finish, you know, were so unprepared. You know, the first couple of disasters, I thought that's teething problems. I mean, whether it's Mandelson, whether it's Angela Rayner, whether it's Lord Ali, whether it's the Chinese spy, whether it's being humiliated by Starmer, it's a daily soap opera. And I think this country is calling out, crying out for a statesman or woman, I'll say that, to just put this country first, put its people first. And I think that's why Reform resonates right now. But you have a job, as you admit, on your hands to fill in the gaps and prove to the doubters, because I hear this all the time. Oh, it's just headlines. Reform just rush around the place saying there's problems with migrants. I think, would it be fair from your point of view to say that those people are underestimating the strength and the growing presence of Reform?
I think it is, actually. I'm going around the country talking to all our councillors. We've got over 900 councillors around the country. We're running councils. We're actually doing a really good job locally. And the fact is that we have to prove that we're really good at local government to actually ensure that we can then run the country. But Nigel is very clear about this. When Labour came into power, they had no policies, remember? And of course, then we saw the U-turns over the winter fuel allowance, for example, the benefits bill, the grooming gangs. We saw all those U-turns. What we're doing is we are getting ready for government to make those changes in the first 100 days, and we will be very clear about that. And I actually think it's time that we had a massive change in this country. It's time that actually people, you know, what I hate more than anything is the negative voting, saying, oh, it's not worth voting for that party because they will never get in. Actually, use your vote wisely. People fought and died for you to have that vote. Vote wisely and make sure you make the right decision.
May, it's such a pleasure to come back home soon. Rushing around the country. Where are you off to today? Surrey. What's next?
I'm in Surrey. Tomorrow I'm in Wales.
Nice. Great to have you on, and thank you. The chairman of Reform, who sat in a pub garden in Surrey with his laptop on his suitcase, and Amy in the bar, give him a free drink, he needs one. Dr. David Bull, thank you very much indeed.